Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and it looks as though I did not successfully launch the intro video. So I apologize to SHIPIT Nation guys for those who created that. I always look forward to getting pumped up from that intro, but for whatever reason, I have failed. So hopefully that doesn't break the mojo up, and we could just get right into this. So again, this is going to be hopefully every Tuesday. It's going to be sort of a recap of what occurred over the weekend in Survivor and other pools. And I believe this is going to be free. And what it is again, we're not going to get into a lot of this picks for next week yet. That's going to be reserved for the Wednesday show. And the Wednesday show this week is going to be Thursday because I'm traveling tomorrow, but no big deal. And a couple of notes. The tool is already updated with respect to the future lines of these teams, but it is not yet refreshed with the EVs and ownerships for this week because it's just too early. Usually those things refresh overnight, Tuesday into Wednesday, which gives me a chance to absorb and theorize and talk about the stuff Wednesday evening. But this week, it's not going to be till Thursday afternoon. It will be in time to consider, though, the Thursday night game, which, spoiler alert, is probably not going to be Survivor relevant. But we'll get to that some other time. So feel free to ask whatever questions you have in here. What you're looking at right here is the Splash SHIPIT Nation Survivor tournament, and I'm just using this kind of as an example of what happened last week. And then the other thing I want to show you, this is the tool that's within SHIPIT Nation as well. We'll go back and forth between these two things. And again, for those that are watching this for the first time, I mean, again, this is a very unique sweet spot in the betting world of the ability to profit in a market which is really exploded, and yet people have no idea what they're doing. So we're really sending it in this year and probably the next 2 or 3 years with respect to firing entries and all this stuff. And, you know, if you stay with us throughout the whole season, whether you join now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever, you're going to learn a skill, really, that is going to be good for at least 3 years. Okay. This is paywall, by the way, starting tomorrow, I believe. But the Tuesday ones are always going to be free because we're going over the previous week and things like that. And listen, you know how it goes with content. You know, we got to show you guys how smart we are, you know, and how dumb we are, and and victory lap and all that stuff, you know, to you know, encourage the people that have not joined yet to join. That's just kind of the way it is. But we want to do something at least intelligent about this as well. So let's go over the teams. And when we go over the teams from last week, we're going to go over them kind of in context of the way I explained them. And I have a couple of comments. First of all, with respect to the Eagles. So the Eagles, by the way, and we're going to say this quite a bit, I mean, the Eagles were a play away from busting as a huge favorite. They were 12, 14% owned in some pools, 10% owned in other pools. And I commented last week that I thought that was completely, that but it was really paying the rake playing the Eagles this week. Really, regardless of what pool you were in, if it was a very, very small single entry pool, maybe I could squint that maybe you're only break even doing that. But most pools that everybody here is playing, the Eagles were just, they just had way too much future value to play this past week. There was a unique dynamic in the Circa pool, by the way, or any pool where you're allowed to rebuy if you lost before the end of the first week, where some people sent it in on the Eagles early with the idea that if they didn't win, they could just buy back later. And it was a weird little situation because so people played like all these Eagles and they won. And I guess, yay. You know what I mean? Like, is that good? I mean, if you told me that you were going to play, say, 10 Eagles in Circa, which was a terrible play, but with the idea that, if you busted, you just, you wouldn't, you'd rebuy. If I told you they were all going to advance, would you have wanted them? It obviously depended on what else happened in the rest of the pool, but the Eagles, for all the reasons we discussed this past week, were really, really a poor play. And as we'll get into it later in the season, I mean, you guys will all learn why these are bad plays. All right. And they won. Pretty much everybody won this week, but we'll get to it. All wins are kind of not created equal. All right. So then we talked about the Broncos. And the Broncos were a very, very interesting dichotomy, because I did say that in single pick pools, they were pretty reasonable. But once you got into double pick pools, there's something you really wanted to fade, just because, again, in those types of pools, you really want to stockpile those teams in 11 through 15. So that's why I thought the Broncos were kind of we're definitely a fade in the double pick pools, and let the record reflect that they were one play, pretty much not one play, but they were a possession away from losing also, and that would have been kind of fun. The first kind of chalky play that I really liked were the Cardinals, and the Cardinals, they ended up a little higher owned than I thought they were going to be, but yet still 20% owned for them was pretty reasonable, because it had a good combination of really good win odds, and they were not to be that used in the future. Now, again, they're going to be used in the future in the next couple of weeks, maybe, but as you get into those double pick weeks, which was really important, you really weren't going to need them. So I thought the Cardinals were a very, very solid play across all formats, and they were one play away from losing. The Saints actually dropped a touchdown pass when they were down 7, and with like 5 seconds to go or something. And who knows what happens if the guy catches that ball. I tell you this, that if they lined up to go for 2, I mean, Cardinal rooters would not have been happy. So that barely survived, but that was our very nice conservative play that worked out. Commanders, I thought, were a pretty weak play. They had a little too much value in the future, and they won handily. I don't think I played a single share of Washington across zillions of lineups, pretty much. The team that we talked about that I thought, and it's so funny, I looked to see if I could just soundbite it. It's in there somewhere. I mean, I was very, very clear that the best play on the board last week in all formats, especially doubles, was in Jaguars. It was a very, very classic, easy, like, top play if you've been doing this for a long time. Okay. The idea of not really worrying about their win odds today, and not really worrying about their sort of low EV today, was really, really important to understand why the Jaguars were such a strong play. They were negative EV for the week, but what you were buying, as I kind of went over last week, you were buying all the red. Like, for example, like this is the map, and you see, like, this is all the red in the future. Like, you're almost never going to use them, like, until maybe very, very deep in the future. So if you were able to get away with that, that was extremely strong. And let the record reflect that of all the teams I mentioned so far, the Jaguars were the ones that had the least sweat of them all. They were up double digits like pretty much the whole time, and were never headed, so to speak. So that was really strong. And if you guys, took my advice and took our advice and played the Jaguars with size and with confidence, you put yourself in a really good position going forward. And we're going to talk about that in a minute or two. Bengals were the third play I liked the most. So I did like the Jaguars the most, then the Cardinals and the Bengals. Again, I thought the Bengals would have had a very, very reasonable EV. They were low owned, which made their EV strong. And I thought their future value was relatively low. So I thought they were a pretty good play, and they won by one possession, like barely. Okay. Now, if you were playing multiple entries and you're playing these double pick pools with a lot of variance in the future because of all the money that was going to be put in these things, all the entries, the real hoodoo, okay, were the Steelers and the Colts. Okay. These are the two that we talked about as being just super high variant, maybe pick 'em type games, but if you got away with it, you would really thank me later. And the Steelers, obviously, that was a huge struggle, but they got there. But the Colts, they were the easiest winner of them all and the whole card. And they were no percent owned, pretty much. And that was really, really big. Like if you were an aggressive player and took advantage of what we were talking about and played the Colts, I mean, that was really, really strong. Okay. I was even talking about like some underdogs, like the Raiders. I thought were worth a stab. They were like 0% on. They came through. The Rams, even, a lot of these low-owned plays that looked quote unquote risky. Okay, if you got away with it in these big double pick pools would have like a billion people in it, you're really, really healthy as far as your entries go. Which leads me to this point. Okay, so in general, most everybody advanced. That's the way it happens. 95% of the pool advanced, but all entries and all advancers are not created equal. And this is why I feel as though, I don't know how many of you guys are DFS players that are watching. I imagine a lot. So like DFS players can really understand this idea better than just kind of straight football fans. The idea of what winning and what advancing with a low owned team can do for you, and to be able to, even though you can't exactly quantify it, to kind of feel the impact of getting away with a team like the Jaguars, and pushing all these Eagles and Broncos, and all these great teams like back into the future. Like you might never actually realize any of this EV, and that's just kind of the way it goes. Okay. But the key to playing pools like this is very similar to DFS in a way. You have to not think about, well, let's talk about UFC, for example. Like there's a lot of people that follow here. They're also UFC players for DFS. And it's very similar. You don't think of really the chances of a fighter winning, although that's important. You think of what happens if he does win. You know what I mean? Like you think about, okay, if this guy wins, how is that win going to affect my lineup and my portfolio of lineups, as opposed to having a chalky player who a chalky fighter is going to win. And that's kind of the way that you think about this type of pool. So I'm going to do I know how to do this? Let me see. Yeah. So I'm going to show this comment by Adam, who's been a very vocal in the Discord. And see, this is the type of portfolio that can win pools. Okay. Listen, what were the chances that all four teams win? Not great. Okay. You were going to average winning like 2.8 of the four. If you ran good, you'd get 3. You know what I mean? If you ran poorly, you'd get 2, which would have been okay. And if you ran hot, you'd get 4, and we got 4, right? So because of that, because you were willing to take that risk, you're listen, it's only week 1, right? But you put yourself in a really, really strong position going forward. Okay. And that's the way you really have to start thinking about this type of thing. And it applies to all pools. I mean, I didn't want to talk about this too much, but I did a video on the Circa Millions pool where you pick against the spread. I just kind of dropped in the Discord, and I said it's basically the same thing. The people that really just try to pick winners against the spread are just doing it wrong. And you just had to try to find teams that nobody was picking. And in that video, I talked about how the Titans were the best play on the board, not because I thought they were going to cover. I thought they were 50-50 like every other, damn team against the spread in the NFL. But I figured no one else would pick them, and they ended up being 6% owned. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, that is like pure money printing. It's a little less quantifiable, really, in Survivor. But trust me, you get away with those teams, say that Adam picked, you are so far ahead, okay, of Eagle advancers, of Bronco advancers, and et cetera. Okay. So that's the way you really have to think about this. It reminds me sort of a scene from Moneyball where I forget who it was. Whoever was playing the David Justice character was saying, I noticed that you're charging us for soda in the soda machine. I've never seen anything like that. And the Jonah Hill character responded like, yeah, Billy likes to keep all the money on the field. And Justice says, where on the field is my soda? And he says, it's hard to see, but it's out there. It's sort of similar, although you could actually quantify, if you really had a computer and send this, you could quantify how strong these entries are. There have been some sites that have tried to do it. It's really, really guessing at this point, but you have to trust me that this is the way you're supposed to play. And we did great. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better result. Sure, it would have been nice if the Eagles lost. It would have been nice if the Broncos lost. Great. Okay, fine, but we can't worry about that. The fact is that we are off to a tremendous start with respect to what we're going to be doing in the future. The other thing I wanted to mention is, again, this map. This did update, and again, it's so funny, like how so much of this is kind of visual. We'll talk about this on Thursday, but when I was having Evan created this for me, and there are other grids like it. But what I love about this is that it has these color enhancements, and I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but to be visual about this, to see like all these teams with all this red, which means that they're just underdogs and just not playable. You know what I mean? It might help you have the confidence in picking some of them early when they are a little bit green. Okay. Now again, that's not the whole story, but I do like this view of the grid better than the ones that I've been used to. What else? Okay, so we talked about double pick pools. With single pick pools, I'll show you. Like this was the SHIPIT Nation, the big multi-entry pool, whatever. This was the 5K, which was single entry. So like in this one, for example, this one had 35% Broncos. I thought that was okay. This one, I guess 22% Eagles. I guess that's not the worst play in the world, but I still think that it's bad. Like even in single entries, like this isn't like a tiny pool. This is 191 entries, or actually it was 200 at the time. And there were a couple of people that busted this thing. There were 2 that took a gamble on the Patriots, 3 that pretty much paid the rake with the Bears. Actually, you know what? I bet you all that happened for your Bears pick is that the person just didn't get in until late, or maybe they rebought. Maybe they lost, maybe rebought if that were the rules of this pool, and then played the Bears or something like that. So that's probably why they ended up there. I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about as far as this recap. So again, like if you want to get in on, what to do in the following weeks, I mean, I'm just going to have to encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already, or just to make sure you tune in for the main show, which is usually Wednesdays, but it's going to be Thursday at 4:00. So also make sure that you're in that Discord channel, so you can bounce some ideas off me or whatever. One thing I will promise you, I will tell you who I like, but remember is that all pools are different. Your pools are different. I'll have no idea who you took. You know what I mean? But I'm always very honest, and I will be very, very direct with you. As long as you realize that, obviously you realize this, that the team loses, it's not my fault. And whenever I say I like a team, it doesn't mean I like them to win. I just mean I like them in Survivor, and that's a totally different scene. Okay, I guess that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Good luck, and hope to see you on the show Thursday.